podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. DirecTV Stream is your home for football this season because it's the best way to catch the games you won't want to miss. And with the DirecTV Stream Sports Hub, you can follow your favorite teams and track scores all in one place. That means more ways to follow the biggest hits, drives, and wins this season. So many you may need your own touchdown dance. So get your sports together and get your TV together at DirecTV.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
On a beautiful run through the park on a pleasant day, you can easily get lost.
No! She didn't kill him.
Huh? In your true crime podcast.
It was the pool guy. So obvious.
Whatever motivates you works for us. It's all about letting your run be your run. And Brooks is here for every runner, doing the research and sweating the details to create gear that works for you. It's your run. Brooks, run happy.
Okay, I realise I'm a little behind on podlets. I did promise that they wouldn't be every day, but they've been even less frequent than I thought they might be. But here it is, your Friday Love Tennis podlet, live from New York, from just off Fifth Avenue in a, well, I was going to say glamorous hotel, but that is not the case. It's fine. I'm extremely lucky to be here, which is the most important thing. I've just got back from a pretty remarkable night at Flushing Meadows. It's still going on. Daniil Medvedev has set up on Wu Yibing, the Chinese number one. I think he will be now, if he's not already. Let me just check that. He's the Chinese number 2, in fact, because, of course, I see Zhang is actually ranked ahead of him. Just. Anyway, not important. Well, I mean, important to him. Not important in the grand scheme of things. Anyway, move on, James, you're waffling. Yeah, things are still going on there, but it's nearly midnight, and it's just, you can't be there for everything. You can't do it all. It is, it's 13, 14, 15 hours of tennis a day, and you just, it's quite hard to do it all. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about today. My day started with Andy Murray versus Matteo Berrettini, which on paper was maybe the match of the day. Well, obviously there's Serena. We'll come on to that, but it was full of intrigue. They played a very good match in Stuttgart just before Wimbledon, where they played 3 sets. It was the final. Berrettini, of course, won. Murray picked up that abdominal injury, which has kind of then dominated the next couple of weeks after that. Berrettini won his second straight title on grass. And then, of course, as Murray said before he played him, he said had a pretty unlucky year, because he obviously had wrist surgery that made him miss the clay court season. All right, it's not his best surface, but nevertheless. And then, he got COVID on the eve of Wimbledon when he was the form guy. I think almost everyone picked him in fantasy tennis, which caused havoc for me, trying to give people the opportunity to pick a replacement. So, he has had an unlucky year in some ways. He's playing really good tennis, and he played really good tennis again against Andy Murray, who, not for the first time, and I'm sure Calvin and I will talk about this when we record a podcast tomorrow, not for the first time, Murray was too passive. I don't know. Let me talk about what I saw in the stadium, because Calvin will tell you about the tactical element of it. But what I found from being courtside, from being 30 yards away from him, was he was very flat, and it was kind of the same against Emilio Nava, that for the first, I don't know, hour and a quarter, it just always feels like he's not really in it. And this is kind of true of Murray for lots of his career. He's always been someone who isn't very good in the non-crucial moments. Like, he was always really clutch, but he would also get dragged into battles because he wasn't necessarily ruthless, in my opinion. And I think he's just someone who needs, a bit of adrenaline. He needs a bit of righteous anger, the kind of person. He said in his press conference afterwards that he's really enjoying proving all those people who said he couldn't come back and play professional tennis again wrong. And that's a really powerful motivational technique, to feel that you're fighting against someone who has wronged you or who has doubted you. And I sometimes feel like when he walks out on court and it's 0-0 and the slate is wiped clean, he just sort of goes, all right, okay, yeah, fine, yeah, let's try and, and he's all very process orientated, and he's just concentrating on making sure he drinks enough water and gets enough sodium on and this, that and the other. And yeah, it's like, well, he somehow needs something to fire him up. Now, there may be lots of reasons for that. It may be nerves. He certainly talks about Nava, where he lost the first set. He said it took me a while to relax, which I thought was interesting. And I guess that's always the challenge for a tennis player. Like, it's such an intense thing to do, to walk out and play in a Grand Slam match in front of all those people with all this pressure from friends, from family, from public, from fans. I don't think any of us who haven't played sport to a very, very high level will ever understand the intensity of those moments. And no matter how many times you do it, I suppose it's probably incredibly hard. And you do need time to relax into it and, just to remind your body what to do and how to do it. And that's what sets apart the very greatest players. They do that quicker. And actually, even these days, Djokovic, Nadal, it's hard to remember what Federer's like, so long since he's played properly, but certainly Djokovic and Nadal are not necessarily fast starters. Nadal's dropped first set in both matches so far this tournament. And Djokovic is very open to dropping sets early on in tournaments these days. And I don't know, maybe that's because their level's dropping a bit and the rest of the world's a bit closer to them and everyone knows their game inside out. But I do think that starting is hard. And, yeah, don't underestimate it at all. So, yeah, Murray did take a while to heat up. And by the time I think he really got going, he was already a set and a break down. And when you're a set and a break down to a guy like Matteo Berrettini, who serves the way he does and who has that forehand that he does, I think it's incredibly difficult to try and get back on level terms. It makes him a brilliant front runner. Thanasi Kokkinakis said it about Nick Kyrgios, actually, that he's one of the best front runners in the world after they played in the first round. And yes, I'm sure that's true, but it's also because of the type of player that they are. You get a break point against them and you kind of panic because it's such a rarity. You're not going to get another one for a while. And, when they're serving well and there's very little you can do about it, it's all the pressure's constantly back on you because, it's you maybe hold to 30 or deuce or save a 8 point and then 2.5 minutes later you're serving again because they've rattled through a game in a minute. And then that is a very hard dynamic. You don't get any rhythm either. Murray is a bit of a rhythm guy. He likes long rallies and, against Berrettini you can't always have that. So he said it was a good matchup for him, and I think he's right. And I think 6-7 years ago, he would have munched Berrettini because he's a great returner, he's a great gritter, he's very good at finding the backhand, which of course is Berrettini's weakness. Simon Briggs of The Telegraph said to me today that he was just thinking of the 2012 US Open when Murray beat Raonic and he absolutely chopped him up. And how different this performance was. Because Raonic and Berrettini are not dissimilar players in terms of what they can do and their strengths and weaknesses. And Murray has always, to be honest, gone pretty well against those big servers. I say 2012. Milos Raonic is surely not old enough to have played him in 2012. Oh, he totally is. Yeah, I don't know why I doubted Briggsy. He's got a very good memory. 6-4, 6-4, 6-2 that was back in 2012. So Murray beaten, and he was actually surprisingly upbeat in press afterwards. He came in very quickly. What people probably don't know is players, I think, are obliged to do a press conference within 2 hours, maybe, or an hour and a half, but it's a pretty movable feast. And it varies. Some of them like to get it out of the way. Some of them want to go off and have a shower and have a stretch, maybe, or a rub down. And often after defeats, I mean, sometimes they won't do them at all, but often after defeats, they are in very quickly, and this was certainly the case. Murray turned up, I think it was maybe like I hadn't even finished my post-match coffee. It's maybe like 15, 20 minutes after he finished, and it was surprisingly chirpy. I thought him being in so quickly meant he was going to be absolutely miserable, but he said he was proud of the way he's competing with these guys at the top level, as I say, proving people wrong that he couldn't do this. At one point he said, with the situation that I'm in, it's quite good to do this, that and the other. And Matt Futterman of the New York Times said, the situation you're in, were you referring to not having a great summer? Or... And then Murray just goes sort of deadpan and quite funny. He just said, no, I've got a metal hip. It's not easy playing with that. He says it's really difficult. I'm surprised I'm still able to compete with guys that are right over the top of the game. And he thinks he's making progress. And, the fact is that the stats do reflect that. He's up to 40-odd in the world. He, lost in 4 sets in the third round of Grand Slam, which is better than losing in the second round of a Grand Slam. He is going forwards, but slowly, and he doesn't have a lot of time because of his age. Now, look, he may have 2 or 3, 4 years in him, but as he says, he has a metal hip, and that's not going to change. And it's a long road back. He genuinely thinks he can be world number 1 again, which is pretty staggering. And one of the reasons he's got Lendl in his camp, quite apart from the obvious success they had together, is that Lendl doesn't not believe that. And from what I understand, not previous coaches, but I mean, there have been people around who haven't believed him and have worked with him and said, well, look, mate, I think we've got unrealistic goals, and so I don't think we can work together. Which is more than reasonable. You've got to have the same goals in a team, and if you don't, then so be it. And I don't think you would find many people around who, in tennis, who if you said to them, when do you think Andy Murray will be world number 1 again? Who would give you a date? That it wasn't never, or, the 11th of November. So, yeah, fair enough. More bad news for Brits today. Jack Draper was going really well. He's playing Karen Khachanov. He lost the first set, but then won the second and went 3-love up, and then tweaked a hamstring, which he got treatment on. He got strapping. It was high up where the hamstring meets the groin, apparently. And he said it felt it getting worse and it wasn't going to get better, and so he had to retire. Again, it surprised me, impressed. He was so level-headed about it. He just said, I've been through injury a lot, and I know that there are much worse things in the world. He had a lot of perspective about it, and he said, it's shoulders back, look forward, keep going. It's incredibly mature for a guy who's 20 and not even finished a full season on tour. So, and he kind of blamed himself. He said, look, I'm not robust enough yet. Well, I don't know. Injuries do just happen sometimes, but he reckons it'll be 2 or 3 weeks, but it means he definitely won't squeeze into the Davis Cup team, unlikely as that was anyway. Bad for Jack, but amazing that he was so kind of calm about it. So good for him. What else do we have today? I'm sort of putting off talking about Serena, but I don't know how much longer I can do it. It's so fresh in my mind, and it was one of the most amazing evenings of tennis. Once again, they sent Ayla Tomljanovic out on court and then played the same Queen Latifah montage that we've all watched twice already this week. So she sat there for a couple of minutes and twiddled her thumbs. And then Serena came out. Of course, it was just rapturous. I mean, for some people, this is a religious experience going to watch Serena Williams. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, there was a woman 3 rows in front of me who by the end was just sobbing. I mean, wailing with tears and emotion. And there were lots of people. I mean, one of my colleagues cried. I won't out them. But it was an emotional evening. And yeah, it was pretty amazing, really. I think overall the crowd, which is my main complaint about the Conservate match, was that the crowd were unfair on her. And I don't know, it felt a little bit better tonight. Tomljanovic has a more kind of American fan base. I heard someone the other day say she's, to all intents and purposes, American. She's probably a bit more close. She's certainly more closely aligned to America than Annette Conservate is. Sorry. So, yeah, that seems reasonable. She lives in Florida. She's based there. And so, yeah, she has a sort of decent number of American fans, you would think. And she played really well, and her shots that she played got a sort of round of applause, whereas, Serena would, I don't know, frame a winner and everyone went mental. That's just kind of par for the course, I would suggest. Did Serena get nervous? Someone asked me this. I think she probably did. She says she's been playing, with nothing to lose and everything to gain, but if you don't get nervous in that situation, I don't think you're human. People might tell me Serena is superhuman, and she is, but I think there were some nerves there. She got the early break. She then lost the early break. First two games, both serves were broken. And then actually was kind of serve dominated, and out of nowhere, Serena then broke Tomljanovic at 3-4 to love. And all of a sudden, she's serving for the set. And she couldn't serve it out. She served for the first and the second set, 5-3 both times, coincidentally. And both occasions, she was broken. I think Tomljanovic should take a lot of credit for that. She jumped all over second serve, really put pressure on Serena's second serve, which has looked a bit flawed this week. She hit 7 double faults in total, and Tomljanovic was really getting inside the baseline and giving her a lot of problems in that area. And, she made it physical. She did what she had to do, which was try and create as many long points as she possibly could. And, yeah, she did a great job of that. She's a great tennis player. She's good to watch. Some of the baseline winners she hit were really amazing. And, yeah, I would watch that match many, many times. And, yeah, the final game, Serena saved 5 match points. And she was just doing what I think of as the signature Serena shot, which is the return of serve from 6 feet inside the baseline, almost jumping often down the line winner. And, she said, well, I'm not going down without a fight. And she really did fight. But it wasn't enough. She's 40, and I think she looked really knackered at stages in that third set. She was blowing really hard. And, I think that probably caught up with her to an extent. She said she felt like she was playing her way into the tournament. She was asked afterwards whether there was any wiggle room in her retirement, and she effectively said probably not. But also, you never know. That favourite line of footballers, you never know. Will you ever play for Man United? Well, I'm a Man City player now, but you never know. And it's. She said, I'm literally playing my way into this and getting better. I should have started sooner this year. I don't think so. I don't think I'll reconsider my retirement. But you never know. I don't know. She was very emotional afterwards. She thanked her parents. Her dad wasn't able to be there because he's not very well. Her mum, Oracene, was there and had a few little power naps during the match. But she's seen it all before, clearly. She said, I think the nicest line for me was, I wouldn't be Serena if there wasn't Venus. She's the only reason that Serena Williams ever existed. And that was nice. It was an emotional night for lots of people. Not necessarily me. I was absolutely sweating copy trying to get things over the line. But yeah, it was a pretty amazing night, and I was delighted to say that I was there. Even if I was up in the nosebleeds, with 25,000 other people, it was pretty cool. Are there any other results or stories that I want to mention to you? Coco Gauff smashed Madison Keys 6-2, 6-3. Madison Keys is in great form. That tells you all you need to know about Coco Gauff at the moment. Watch out for Lyudmila Samsonova. The Russian is on a 12-match winning streak now. She beat Alexander Krunic to go through to the fourth round. She will face Tomljanovic. And also keep an eye on Caroline Garcia, the French woman who beat Andreescu in straight sets tonight. She obviously beat Emma Raducanu at Wimbledon. She's a big server. She is in the best form of her life and is someone who I think could maybe be one of those weird slam winners. She will play Alison Risk Armitage in the fourth round, and then the winner of Zhang Gauff, which would be a pretty sturdy test. So maybe that's where it ends. But someone to keep an eye on, I think. There's also a few interesting results in the men's. Casper Ruud went 5 sets with Tommy Paul, but he did eventually win. Alejandro Davidovich Fokina won in 4 sets, which is pretty surprising, given he almost always goes to 5, it seems. And at the end, he had an argument with Daniel Elahi Galan at the net, because Galan is one of those players who likes to get the ball back when he's hit an ace. He wants to use the same ball again, which is actually quite annoying if you're playing against it. And once Fokina said, don't give it to him, sort of as a joke, and he laughed, and Daniel laughed, apparently. This is all Fokina's version of events, because he won, and history's written by the winners. And then the second time, there was a bit of a sense of humour failure, and they had a hearty exchange of views at the net. But anyway, that's just what happens sometimes, and no one's going to get... No one died, in the words of Alan Partridge. Nick Kyrgios went through tonight as well. Didn't, as far as I know, complain about anyone smoking any weed, which is what happened earlier in the week. He said he could smell weed at Flushing Meadows, and he's probably right, because the whole of Queens smells of weed. So I'm sure he did. But yeah, he beat JJ Wolf, the man who looks like he's from the 80s, with a tank top and a mullet. Very comfortably, really. 6-4, 6-2, 6-3. It only lasted an hour and 56 minutes, I think. How many aces did Kyrgios hit, I hear you ask? 21 is the answer, which is pretty decent. He was unbroken throughout the match. 0 from 7, JJ Wolf was on break points. So yeah, Kyrgios in kind of ominous form again. It does now feel like he's just a guy who makes his way through draws at Grand Slams, and we don't have to talk about him too much, but he will probably play, I say probably because Daniil Medvedev is currently still playing Wu, but he is a set and 2 breaks up, so he will probably play Daniil Medvedev in a really intriguing fourth round match on Sunday. Which could be pretty fascinating, actually. The other confirmed fourth round ties are Pavlo Carreño Busta against Karen Khachanov. Busta beat Alex de Minaur. Fokina against Matteo Berrettini. Corentin Moutet, the lucky loser, is through to the fourth round, incredibly. He, incidentally, lost in qualifying to Wu Yibing, who's also through, and then replaced Pablo Andujar, I believe. Oh no, he didn't. Hugo Dellien, there you go, as a lucky loser. And he then beat Stan Wawrinka after Wawrinka got injured in the first round. He then picked up a very good winner, Botic van der Zandschulp. And then Pedro Cachin, who did not cash in on his opportunity to reach the fourth round. Apologies for that joke, I thought it was quite good. And Moutet into the fourth round. Could play, well, will play, in fact, Casper Ruud, which is a pretty stiff test. But he's not always the most popular guy on tour, Corentin Moutet. He is pretty leery, for want of a better phrase. That's all from me tonight. You'll get some of me and Calvin looking forward a bit more tomorrow, so it'll probably be in your feeds Saturday night. So if you're having a night in, listen to me and Calvin. And keep coming back.
Sports Social Podcast Network.